In this week's episode, we are going to discuss the very complicated topic of paying 50-50 when you're going out on dates. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, everyone. You're listening to All Cards on the Table podcast with Claire and Sylvia, a show that talks about how men and women aren't so different from each other. We just don't speak the same language. We will dissect every topic and put an end to miscommunication. So, get ready to get uncomfortable. Hi, and welcome back. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Claire Attio.
Hi, everyone. This is Sylvia Herrera.
And as I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about that topic, 50-50. Everybody seems confused. Everybody seems to have a really strong opinion on it. And so there are quite a few things to debunk, really, aren't there, within this? Because Sylvia and I are from a certain age. I'm older than Sylvia, obviously, and so that creates differences there. But young women, young men going out into the dating scene, they're like 50-50, this is only fair. And yeah, it is only fair. But also the other thing is how is that going to transpire if you go on into full relationships and then you get together and then you have a family and then maybe you decide to be a stay-at-home mum? What are the expectations there? And so it's all about the precedents that you set and the expectations in the longevity that we want to focus on, because there's lots of different pointers. I mean, I struggled after my breakup with Georgina, with my daughter's father. We were basically teenage sweethearts, and so I never really had that whole dating scene knowledge. And then all of a sudden I was kind of thrown into the dating scene again, and I was like, what do I do here? Because I was a single mother, so my cash flow was limited. And so I can remember thinking, oh God, I hope they don't pick a really expensive restaurant, because that's going to take up my grocery budget for the month, if I pay my half. And so those were things that I used to worry about. And I remember a dear friend saying to me, Claire, look, if you're going out on a date, let them pay, let them choose, and then they can assess what they can afford. And so I kind of use that. But I do know sometimes I was out on a date and some people got a bit ratty about it. And of course, when I kind of felt that and when I seen that in their face, I kind of paid up. But I thought, yeah, it's such a minefield, isn't it? To get it right and to be confident enough, especially in those first dates, to actually have those conversations, because you're on first date, you want to make a good impression, but money is always a difficult one anyway. Even when you're in an established relationship, having conversations about money with a partner that you're in love with and they're in love with you can be contentious. And so it is a minefield, isn't it?
It is. And like you said, the first date, it's always kind of sets the tone for what's coming. And I know the first day you're not thinking long term, but it does set the state. Like if you're already going 50-50, the next time you're going to go out, I was like, oh, I'll get it, or you'll get it. It's still 50-50, but there will be a little bit of, like you said, disimbalance right there, because unless you're both making equal amount, it will never be the same. So it's really not 50-50, right? And so when I hear that, it's 50-50, I'm like, well, who benefits from this? Who's benefiting from this? To me, when I'm not dating, but when I was dating, my father would tell me, like, you make sure that when he invites you. And first of all, it's not because I couldn't do it. It's just that he said it's really hard for a man to ask someone on a date, but that shows that he genuinely wants to be there, first of all.
Yeah, good point.
And that he takes you out. He invited you. He's paying, and you go wherever he takes you, and be modest about what you get, because even though he's taking you there, he's going to probably try to choose something that to impress you, but that within his budget. Or if he takes you somewhere fancy as well, just look out for the signs, look at how he's reacting so that you can read the room. He's like, and I always did that, and I'm glad I listened to him, because sometimes there were times like, oh my God, the steak looks really good, but it was really pricey. But I was just choose like somewhere right in the middle, not too low, and and just kind of be like, oh, this sounds good. And I would look to see his reaction next to the price, and he's like, oh, that's good. Okay, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get that then. So it's also, to me, that kind of also sets the tone that you are aware of the other person and you're mindful of the person, because you generally also want to be there.
Yeah.
And so that was the point of always my dates, like they paid first on the first date. I mean, there has been times where I did pay because other reasons, but for right now, if we're sticking for the first date, my rule's like, they invite me, they're paying, and it was never 50-50. Because I wanted to show that they're putting the effort, and if this should turn out into a long-term relationship and then further, I don't want to look back later and say like, well, he kind of showed me his true colors in the beginning and I just didn't see them, or I chose not to see them once I'm in a long-term relationship and we're having this discourse of money and he wants me to do my half and his half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he told me from day one, but we don't see those things. So it's setting the tone right there. So for me, it's always kind of be like, okay, that kind of gives you a glimpse of what's to come. So
Yeah, and I think it's getting on the negative aspects of dating. There is a lot of catfishing that goes on. There is a lot of people that go out on dates just because they want to get in, they want some extracurricular activity type scenarios. And so they're not going to do that if they have to capture the full bill, or they usually don't do that if they have to capture the full bill. It's almost like a little safeguard. And I know that's a really cynical way of looking at it, but I think we need to be looking at this because women want equality, but as Sylvia said, we're working towards equality, and there is nothing wrong with a woman paying 50-50. I'm not saying that. In many cases it is, but those first dates, that absolute interest, but as Sylvia also said, it's the responsibility of the other person to actually be reading the room and be reading the person.
mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I just find it, I know, obviously being of a certain age now, obviously family members and things and friends of families and all their children are all growing up and they're all having children of their own, and I do know that the women are struggling because they've done the whole 50-50, we're equal, and exerting their power into equality, even when they've been, and I have to say, every single one of them are with really good guys that are quite happy, but they've exerted that authority, and of course now they've got young families. They're struggling because the women still have the expectation that they've got to pay their half,
Mm-hmm.
and yet they're on a reduced income because they're at home looking after the children as well. And so it is about the precedents that you're setting and having those conversations in the longevity.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, when I started going back out dating with my daughter, I was a single mum on a nurse's wage, so there was not a lot of spare cash, but that shouldn't have been the reason for not going out and having fun. That shouldn't have been the reason for not going out and dating. And so it really helped me with that. But I did have a few cases where it was made very evident that actually this was a 50-50. And it's interesting, isn't it, whether that's my own beliefs and things. And I'm not looking, I've never looked for a cash cow in any relationship that I've been in, but it is interesting because I was just like, right, okay, where's this going to go? I mean, I know with my last relationship, the first dates that we had, they always paid for. And then as we moved into a full-blown relationship, it was like, right, okay, if we're going to go out every weekend and have some lovely meals, then we really need to kind of both chuck into a kitty, as it were, so that it was 50-50 and we could have what we want.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. But like the first date are the ones that kind of set the tone.
Yeah.
But obviously, in a long-term relationship, if you've been with someone for over a year or even a couple of months now,
Yeah.
and they're not, unless they're rich, of course, but you guys are going 50. There's nothing wrong with you taking your partner out and you paying as a woman. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, of course, especially if you want to go to a restaurant you really want to go, or if you can say, "Oh, I got this," but now it's a partnership because it's kind of like, "Hey, let me get you. You've been paying for me. Let me take you out."
Yeah.
And that's almost like a thank you, like, "Hey, you not like a thank you for taking me out, but like a I appreciate you," I would say.
Yeah.
So because I appreciate you, I want to also do something nice for you and take you out because that also is important.
And I think women forget that, actually, that you can actually go, no, okay, your first dates, they're inviting you, they're showing, and it is hard for men to ask somebody out on a date that they really like. It is difficult for them to, they have as many insecurities as we have. It's, and so it is a big deal. There is nothing in the future as a woman saying, okay, I'm taking you on a date and
Uh-huh.
you picking up the tab.
Yeah.
And I think women tend to forget that. It seems to me, and I think it must be very difficult for men because women seem to be in one camp or the other. They're either down that whole feminist route, I'm paying 50-50, and then they get peed off later on because it doesn't quite work out because the expectations they've set something in motion that doesn't fulfill their expectations of what a relationship should look like.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other women where a good proportion, and I've seen it, and I know you would have, Sylvia, there's a good proportion, and I'm going to have to say in men's defense, there's a good proportion of women that have massive expectations and never put their hand in their pocket. And they
Oh,
think it's their God-given right because they're females.
yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, that is very true. And it goes back to where I was telling you about being modest about what you get when you're on a first date, read the room, read your date, right? And there are women who just say, well, I really don't want to go with this person, but it's a free meal. And and you will to when I tell my brothers, they go, okay, first of all, if she gets the most expensive thing in there and starts ordering like there's nobody, run for the hills. She has no interest for you.
Mm-hmm.
No, because a person that really wants to be there with you, they also want to make a good first impression. But if they feel entitled, you invited me, you should be glad that I'm with you. Look at me. I'm this beautiful, exotic woman, or blah, 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 blah. You should be lucky to be with me, and I'm going to get whatever. Run for the hills. Unless that's what you want, right? But I mean, men who are genuinely looking for partnership, that's usually not what they want. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be fair to say once they start ordering one of the first things that you're not comfortable with, or start ordering in the more expensive side, that's gonna be all she's telling you what she's expecting of you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're comfortable with that, go for it. I know there's a lot of guys who are, are good with that. Um, there's also those genuine guys that people swear that they don't exist anymore because they're too afraid. We make them too afraid to even ask girls out. And so when they finally get the courage and you have someone taking advantage of them and they're generally good guys, that just, it kind of sets the tone. It's like, well, this is exactly what I thought it's going to be. And so I'm going to leave. But if they don't have respect for you or be modest on a first date and they're just ordering left and right, which I was telling you about, I think there was a reel or a TikTok, something like that, in social media, that came across my way of this woman who um went on a date, and on her first, she said, I really don't want to go out, and but it's a first, I'm gonna get my free meal tonight. And not only does she get like oysters, which we know they can be quite expensive depending where you go.
Mm-hmm.
Got like not one but like 3 or 4 stacks of them, and order like champagne, and she ordered like really expensive meals, and then she ordered more things. And it was the first date, and so then he kind of goes, listen, I invited you for a nice meal, right? I'll pay for one of this and this and that. Then you're on your own for the rest. And she was appalled. And I think she thought that people were going to side with her, and people were like, no, what are you doing? What are you thinking? So
Yeah.
so that goes to show, right now we're still thinking that same thing, that we're like, hey, it's okay if he takes you out and he pays for you, but be mindful, be aware. And then they were telling him, well, he did good, he just ran off and never looked back, because that's what we're talking about. There are women who take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, Sylvia, but are you not fed up of being tarred with this brush for the minority that are exerting their femininity in such a crass way?
Yeah.
And really kind of saying, well, that I'm a woman, and I la, la, la. And it's for me, it really it irritates me, because yeah, okay, I'm a feminist and I'm fighting for equality every single day of my life. I've been doing that, but not to the expense of men, not
Yeah.
to the expense of the masculine. What we want is balance.
Yeah.
And I think those type of women are just, well, I don't know. It's just kind of, the hairs on my back of my neck stand up. I'm a woman, so what on earth it must do to men is I really can't comprehend it, because you just,
I can't either.
I do sometimes wonder whether they don't see it, because I've got brothers, and I've had some male friends, and they're kind of like, they're absolutely devastated when they've been taken advantage of like that, and I'm like, well, did you not see that coming? It was written all over them.
Yeah. We've heard this so many times, like when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we kind of hope that that's not the case, but no, it is. It really is. And that's why first dates are so important. And I now I live in Sweden, and Sweden is completely different from, I think, the rest of the world when it comes to dating, from what I hear, and they say here that everything's 50-50. But in Sweden, it kind of makes sense, because it really can be 50-50 here, because they do take the men also do take that 1 year off when they have children.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist everywhere else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So until the culture adapts to a 50-50 state, man, it doesn't work in the rest of the world.
No.
Here I can see that. And one of my friends, Swedish friends, said, well, I like to make sure that I pay for myself, because then I don't want to think about what I can and cannot get. That's one for sure. And I feel like I don't have to owe that person anything, like going to sleep with him after that, or anything. And if I don't like,
I'm sorry interrupting, but what the hell is that? You
I
go out on a date and then you're obliged? I don't think so.
I don't
Where
think
did that come from?
I don't know. That was the first time I actually heard about that, and I'm like, but then you're with the wrong kind of guys. I was like, or have things changed since I've been dating? I mean, I haven't dated in over 20 years, but so I was like, have things changed? But so I was just like, but they don't really expect that, do they? And they're like, oh no, yeah, they do. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I was like, I don't think this is the first time I hear about it. Like,
I think it's one of those urban myths that women believe, because
yeah,
I'm going to have to say, and my daughter's got lots of male friends, so I've been able to have conversations and things with them, and so they're of that generation, that younger generation, and they don't expect that. If they
I've
get
never
it,
heard it.
they think they've struck gold. But I
Yeah,
mean, they're young hormonal men, for goodness sake. But
yeah.
they don't actually expect it, and so I think it's a female urban myth.
I would agree with I'm gonna agree with you on that one because I was shocked when she told me that. I mean, she's a little bit older than I am, and she's been on dating scenes and divorced and everything. And I was just like, was it always like this, or is it just because it's a different generation now? And she's like,
Mhm.
no, 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 it's always been like this. And when I was younger, and I was like, see, I don't know about that because I think that we have been portraying men to be this sleazy, conniving type of people, but I've never encountered any of that. So I can't say that all men are like that because
Mm.
actually it's the first date or first 3 dates, it's kind of like leading up to that moment if that happens even. Um but for her it was like it's a 50-50 and this and that. And they believe everything in 50-50, but then I go, so how does that work when you guys get married? Do you guys get married? I mean, if it's a 50-50, why even bother getting married, right? I said. And so most people here in Sweden, they don't even get married, but um because they have to do separate taxes anyway. So there's really no reason most of us in the Western world do get married for that tax break as well. Even if you're not religious, people obviously for religion purposes, they get married. But if you're not religious, they still get married because of the tax break. So, but here, the 50-50 could potentially work because they do um
But
have that.
there's much more equality there, isn't there? That's the thing.
There is a little more equality,
Yeah.
but it's still not, it still proves a point with the dating part because now they're doing it so that they don't have to like put out. I'm sorry for putting it that way, but I don't want to put out, so I'm gonna pay my share. Or I don't want, they're expecting something of me if they pay for it. So that mentality there is still like, oh, well, it's 50-50 for this.
But
And I know
do you know what that's saying to me? Sorry, interrupting you again, because that is saying to me, and I'm sat here and my whole body is cringing because that is saying to me that many women feel that they're a commodity that can be bought and sold.
that's a good,
They're feeling that.
yeah, that's a
And
good,
so they're stopping themselves from being bought and sold. And I'm sat here and I'm just like, I'm listening to, and I'm just like, wow, what?
and it
What?
wasn't just her because I actually was a couple of Swedish women when we were having this spiritual meeting because we know as we do the spiritual also meditation and
Mm-hmm.
Reiki stuff. So it was women and who are also in this, and they're like, no, yeah, yeah, it's like that. And I'm like, okay, so
Wow.
and they're like, yeah, well, it's a very different dating scene in Sweden. It's like you kind of do it's it's almost, I feel like you guys are telling me like it's almost like a business transaction. And if it goes well, then you guys move into a relationship and you become friends and then possibly love interest. And then he's like, yeah, kind of like that. And I'm like, so you can't be friends, get to know them, and then see if it works out because you have to know who they are. Like, no, no. So it's the opposite, apparently, in Sweden. So anyone in Sweden
Okay.
hearing me right now, just confirm or deny because this is coming from not one or two, couple of Swedish women and men, let me say as well. Um, so that to me is like, okay, the 50-50 in terms of money and economic in the relationship later on would work only because here in Sweden, you have the law where the father, on the second year of the baby's life, they stay with the baby. So that way, the mom goes back to work and she gets a chance to catch up with her work when she was home with the baby, right?
Yeah.
So, in that sense, okay, that makes sense. But now the kids are grown up and it's still 50-50. And here's where I have a problem with it because from what I hear from the people that have families, it's that, oh, I'm going on this vacation with my friends and they're paying for it for themselves. I'm like, what about your partner? Well, he can't afford it, so he can't, or she can't afford it, so she can't.
Oh,
And to me, I'm like, and they're okay with that. Yeah, yeah, we're totally fine. We
Um,
discussed this. And so if it works for you, great.
yeah, horses
And,
for courses.
uh,
It
if it
just
works
seems
for you,
odd,
great.
though, doesn't it?
Yeah. But to me, having grown up in the US with, Mexican culture where family's everything, it's very shocking. It's unsettling, I guess. And then I mean the UK is the same. They're very traditional family values too.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, my mother obviously my mother being that much older again and coming from very, very traditional values, she really struggles when she sees her grandchildren that are now in their relationships, and she kind of sits there scratching her head, going, "I don't get this. I don't," because obviously they have this where they have their lives together, but they have the separate lives, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a part of me that goes, actually, no, that it's because we're breaking that codependency. We have the right to be ourselves and to
Yeah.
have those outside interests, absolutely. Whereas my mother, because obviously she was entrenched in the codependency that was well, that was it. That was all they knew in that generation. So she really struggles with that. But I have to say, I do struggle sometimes when I hear them say things about their finances, and I'm like, well, surely you're in this together.
Mhm.
And so it's very I think the key point is we are globally, humanity is going through massive transformations. And so with each upcoming generation, we're trying to break the habits that we know create dysfunction, but we're
Mhm.
still feeling our feet with what that actually looks like and how we can actually work through that. I mean, the one thing that I would actually say, bringing it back to the podcast, is guys, if you want to take a girl out on a date, don't fall for the I need to impress her. I need to save up for a year to take her to a fancy restaurant, because you're setting a precedence. She doesn't
Uh-huh.
know that you've saved up for a year to
Yeah.
ask her out. Take her somewhere nice by all means, somewhere where you can be proud of, but somewhere that's realistic for your finances, for where you're at, because you will know then if she's genuinely interested in you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I agree with you.
And I
Mhm.
think a lot of men make this mistake. It's like, oh God, she's beautiful. She's this, she's that, she's da, 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 da. And I need to take her here. I need to impress her. I need to impress her. You impress her by being yourself. Impress her by being authentic. You impress her by, yes, taking her somewhere nice by all means, but somewhere that is within your budget. It doesn't break your bank for the
Mhm.
month.
Exactly.
And then you're not setting unattainable expectations for both of you.
Yeah. I mean, it's stressful. It would be
Mhm.
stressful, and that's not a good way to start a relationship. Uh, and also when you do on a first date, I think that the whole point, we've forgotten the whole point of dating. I feel like most people now have forgotten the whole point of dating, and that is almost to try on different personalities to get to know who you click with, if this is gonna work and if this is not going to work before you do a long-term relationship. And I think people are just dating now, calling it dating, I would say, to hook up, and that's not the whole point of dating.
Mm-mm. No, no.
So that first date, if you go 50-50, and even if you as a woman goes like, well, I'm gonna go 50-50 because I'm a feminist, great. If that is your point of view, don't expect in the future for him to be traditional.
Hmm.
You
You
made
set
your,
standards, yeah.
yeah, you made your lie on it. Now if you're gonna be taking out on a date and for the first time and they take you out and they pay, the guy pays, or then for a couple of times, to the guys, see if she offers as well, or see if the favors returned as well, especially those times where maybe you can't really take her out because of income or payment or whatever, you're a little tight on money. She's going to show you, she's going to show up for you when things get tough in the long run? So let's say long run, you guys get married, you lose your job. Is she going to step up and help out? So that's the partnership, because she already told you. So if she goes, oh, you don't have money, okay, well, maybe we'll go next week. That's what's going to happen later on as well. So
And
don't
I think
expect her
this
to
is
show up.
what's being missed, isn't it, in the whole
Yeah.
dating thing at the moment. It's these cues as to what a long-term relationship would be like that are being missed. This whole confusion of 50-50. The cues and the information that can be obtained just by going on a traditional date, and all that information is being lost.
Yes. And I think that's why we have forgotten, or why we have such a huge high divorce rate nowadays. It's because we meet someone, we take them for face value, and then we get shocked later on that they're not what we thought they were, because you missed out on those key points of dating. And that's why dating is so important. And getting to know that person, getting to know what you're getting yourself into. And it starts with as simple as if they invited you and if they paid for your first meal, because they're showing you they genuinely had the guts to get you out or take you out, and that they obviously took in consideration that they're going to be responsible for you for that first date. And as it progresses, there will be times where maybe the one of the guy doesn't have the money. Does she show up for you, or is she's only there for you because you continuously give her things, or you give her nice restaurants? Is she gonna show up for you? And if she does show up for you, great. Now you know you're in a good foundation. You've started your foundation correctly. You know what to expect. And that is the whole point of dating, and this whole pay, a guy takes you out and invites you, pay. But it can also be like, okay, what if the girl, because we're in this new modern era, can a girl take out a guy on a first date? Yes, of course. I don't see there's anything wrong. If she really likes the guy, and he could just be potentially really shy, and that she takes a shot, sure, can I take you? And she's like, let me pay for you. Now here's where I was like, if she pays, I don't think there's anything wrong. She invited you.
Yeah.
But if he goes, no, let me get you, that's even greater, because then like he was just really shy. He really wanted to be there. He enjoyed it. And now he's like,
Yeah,
thank you for
he just never
first
had the
initiative.
courage. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of guys out there that, I mean, women grapple with all the BS that they're taught, which is
Yeah.
completely dysfunctional, but so are guys. And I think this gets forgotten. It certainly doesn't get talked about enough, is that as guys are growing up, they're fed so much BS of what women expect that just isn't true. And so if they have an eye for somebody who in their eyes is absolutely beautiful. I mean, how many times have we heard a guy say, oh no, they're out of my league? I mean, you've got brothers,
Yeah.
and I've got brothers, and I know, and I like, I remember my brother. I did my nursing training, and we had doctors, as we were all living in the same apartments and things and houses, and we threw a house party, and one of the female doctors that actually worked for us, my brother was just in complete awe of her and her of him. But because he wasn't academically professional, he was like, oh no, she's completely out of my league, far too intelligent for me. And she was just desperate for him to ask her out. And he never would. He never would. And I said to him, for God's sake, and I, just ask her out. Just
Yeah.
ask her out. And she could have asked him. And this is the other thing, guys, to kind of take on board. Yes, she could have asked him. But what she said to me have always stuck to me, because she said to me, she said, if I ask him, Claire, he's always going to put me on a pedestal. And I don't want to be on a pedestal. I want a relationship. And that always stuck with me, because that is really important as well. Because when you're on a pedestal, you fall off. It's somewhere, and she was very aware that she was not okay. She may have been a doctor, and okay, she may have had her career sorted, and she was going places with her career. But as far as she was concerned, she was also the girl next door. And she just wanted a real relationship. And so she didn't want to go out with anybody that was going to keep her and put her and keep her on a pedestal, which is why she was waiting and desperate for him to ask her out. But of course, he could never work up the courage to do that, because in his head, because of what he grew up with and what he was taught from the BS that men and boys get given as well, he was like, oh no, she's out of my league, she's out of my league. And it's sad. So guys, do not put anybody up on a pedestal. Find out who they are. Find out if they're a person you like, and then get the courage to ask them out.
Exactly. And another note, given the situations now with everything going on, there's less likely that a man will ask you out, because this whole discourse of men being portrayed as taken advantage of, misogynistic, and all this agenda that goes behind it, the good guys are just not going to do it anymore. And they're just like, unless I see some real signs that she's into me, I don't want her to think that I'm coming onto her or doing anything, because there are people who take it like he's harassing me, right?
Oh God, yeah. What is that?
So,
he's asked you on a date. That is not harassment.
Unfortunately, that has happened. And so now you have, like I said, the good guys are going like, and I really need to make sure, right? that I'm not gonna cross that. Because I mean, remember, maybe like I always tell my daughter, like my dinosaur mind, I would think the thrill of the chasing, right? Like the someone asks you out, you're kind of shy, like no, this and that, and then he has like, come on, let's go out. He's, and it was just like, and back then it was more like, I believe like, okay, well, I don't know, I'm kind of embarrassed, I don't know, what are we gonna do? For me, it was more like, I said no because I was just like, okay, I don't know what if he doesn't like me? What if so there's all these thoughts as you're going through your head. So you usually say no because you're too nervous, right? And then that he goes off and asks somebody else, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess he didn't really like me. He's just going from girl to girl. But if he asks again, I was like, okay, well, he's genuinely interested. Maybe I'll consider it. But it was the thrill of the chase, because something good doesn't come that easy, right? So you kind of grew up with this thing, and we're like, well, it's games. And I'm like, I never saw it as a game. I saw it first as in, if you want to be with me, you should put a little effort in. It should come, because I don't think that you need to, I mean, not like, oh, no. I mean, if I say absolutely not, it's not, right? But what I'm talking about is, there are times when a woman's like, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm, like I said, maybe I'm too old or dinosaur thinking here. But I do know the giddiness of being asked out the first time and you're not quite sure if you're too nervous or something, right?
I think when you're younger, I think as you get older, and I'm listening to you, and I get what you're saying, but there's also a caution in there, because there's a lot of people that just like the chase, and when you're looking for an actual partnership, then those people are not, because there's some people that just like the chase. There are some people
that's what I'm saying.
That's all that's of interest to them. They think it's a challenge and they like that game,
and that's what I'm saying. Like, when your first initial is like, no, I don't want to go out with you, of course that's a flat out no. But if you go, oh, I can't, not this time, blah blah blah, it's most of the, and that's what I'm saying to women too. If a no is a no, but if you're going like, no, because XYZ, you're not turning him down. It's just that at that moment it's not the right time. Meaning that. And so if he goes later for somebody else, after you say, well, because of XYZ, okay, he was just trying to see if he can get that. That's what I
I think it's a good
okay, I
indication.
understand. So I'm gonna wait a little bit longer. And then if he asks again, then give him a chance, because he really did want to go out with you. That's what I was trying to get to. It wasn't like, okay, well, no, if you know, I mean, no means no, period. No, it's a full sentence. Let's get that straight. If you don't feel comfortable, no, it's a no, don't go after that. But if you genuinely do want to, but you're just not sure, or you're not in a good place, you're healing, give that guy a valid reason why you're saying no the first time, because he might come around later when the time is right.
I think that comes down to that. And it comes back to the whole beginning of the podcast, the 50-50. It's the vulnerability to speak your truths.
Yeah.
And that is so important. If you is getting yourself in a space where you can allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to actually say what you're thinking, actually say what you're going through. Few people are confident enough to do that, or few people get themselves, they think they have to kind of put this act on, or they have to play games, and that comes from the media, that comes from the movies, that comes from all. There is a lot. I mean, my you know, my mother, I love my mother dearly, but I mean, she was from a generation where they used to play games. They used to have men chase them. And I think that's probably when you said that, I was like, because
Okay, yeah.
it's,
No, no,
it's,
no,
you
no,
know,
no.
it's, I think it's allowing yourself, getting
Yeah,
yourself in a confident
no,
position where you can be vulnerable and you can speak your truth. So if you're going out for a date, you can actually say, I'm not comfortable with paying 50-50 because I'm looking at this as a real date, not a friendship, not a hookup.
yes. And that's kind of when you are going for a real date. That's what I meant by that. It's like
Yeah.
it does start before even you being asked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it doesn't start in the beginning of the date. It starts before. And we have forgotten that as well. And that's what I was saying. Like, if you want to know if they're genuine because, or they're just going from place to place, from girl to girl, from to girl, and asking whoever wants to go out, that kind of gives you an idea. Like, okay, he's just a little Casanova, wants to whatever. But it's not the game thing. No, if you're genuinely happy when they ask you the first time out and you say yes, I want to go out with you. Okay, I've seen it so many times where they're very genuinely and they jump into that first date, and then the next day they're like, oh my God, we had such a great date, and they never call me back, and now he's on a date with somebody else. And then I was just like, okay, see, this is what I meant about
Yeah.
put a little effort in.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
to know that person. Is it
Yeah.
somebody? And if you do jump into that, I would say, like, don't have any expectations for later. Like, to like, okay, feel it out first before you throw yourself fully in just because you really like the
Yeah,
person.
I mean that is the thing. One, remember it's an actual date. You're not starting a relationship. You're going on
Yeah.
a date. Even when you're looking for a relationship, and I think this is another big red flag that people do, is they go on a date expecting a relationship to come of that instantly. No, you're going on a date. You're going to see if there's any compatibility there, and if there is, possibly you will have a second date somewhere along the line to further explore that compatibility. And I think people mess that up. They go, oh, we're going on a date, and in their heads they start this whole story about the whole relationship, and they have it all planned for how it's going to roll out. It's I would actually say, kind of bringing this to a close, really get clear on what you want, guys. If you're wanting an actual relationship, I'm not saying don't push the boat out. I'm not saying don't make it magical. What I'm saying is don't over exceed
Yeah.
your capabilities.
Yeah.
It's don't
Just be genuine.
don't put on a
You are.
magic show. Yeah, but just be genuine. If you can only and it's not about only affording. If it's you, be honest, be true, show that person who you truly are, and
Mhm.
vice versa. Women, you, when you're going, if you're absolutely one, I would actually say, if you're thinking just because somebody buys you a meal means that you're then obligated to them, then I would actually say look inwards into yourself, because you're actually treating yourself as a commodity. You've allowed that to come into your own energetic field. And two, really kind of look at why it's important for you. Are you going to, are you as Sylvia said, are you always going to be wanting to pay 50-50 as you move into a relationship, as you start to lower your hours because you decide to have a family, or whatever that looks like? Or are you wanting somebody that you actually share your life with? Or are you wanting a relationship that is compartmentalized, where he has his, she has his, or she has hers and she has hers, or whatever the dynamics are? Do you want it that you have your separate lives and you just live together? Or are you actually wanting to share everything? And so when you have a little bit extra, you share that with them. When they have a little extra, they share that with you. It's you have to be very clear on your dynamics so that you then find the right person. And for those women that are just looking for a cash cow, sorry, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. You're giving all women a really bad name.
Yeah, I agree.
And so that's bye-bye from me.
And me. And as always, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, comment so that we get more views. That, it helps us out a lot. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so, and please leave a review, as it helps us grow and bridge the gap between the sexes. If you have any topics you would like us to cover, shoot us an email. Until next time, go out and practice putting all your cards on the table with no judgment, expectations, and fear.